Daddy, have a good day. On that day, as usual, I smiled and waved goodbye to my husband, Tyler, as he set off for his hobby of hiking. I was with our 4-year-old daughter, Wendy. However, he slipped off a cliff and went missing. The bad weather made the search difficult, and it was eventually called off, with survival deemed unlikely. Both Wendy and I were engulfed in sorrow, yet time quickly passed, and before we knew it, 2 years had gone by. Reaching my limit of waiting for my husband who never returned, I decided to move as Wendy started elementary school. Then, on the day of her school entrance ceremony, I saw it. I saw a photo of Tyler, looking happy with a woman and child I didn't recognize. Tyler and I had been together since our college days. He loved outdoor activities and often enjoyed hiking and camping, whether alone or with a large group. Wendy and I were frequently taken to campsites, mountains, and picnics. Living with my kind husband and lovely daughter was truly a happy time for me. On the other hand, I preferred indoor activities. However, after getting married, I began to enjoy active hobbies thanks to my husband's influence. But it seemed Wendy felt differently. Wendy, shall we all go hiking tomorrow? No. I'd rather stay home and draw or play games. Since starting kindergarten, Wendy had come to prefer indoor activities like playing with dolls and drawing over the outdoor adventures led by Tyler. What kind of play she prefers, that's just her personality, and as parents, we couldn't really change that. However, I could tell Tyler felt sad that he couldn't share his interests with Wendy anymore. She still loves spending time with Daddy, and she hasn't come to hate outdoor activities. I'm sure she'll enjoy them more as she gets more active. I tried to encourage him, but it didn't have much effect. His time with the family gradually decreased, and he started going out alone or with friends on his days off to enjoy his hobbies. Moreover, his job seemed to get busier, and he began leaving early in the morning and returning late at night. Looking back, that may have been a sign of the tragedy that was about to unfold. I'm heading out. I'm going to go a bit further today. At 5 a.m., Tyler got up early for hiking, ate the breakfast I made, and left the house. Everything was the same as usual. Daddy, have a good day. On the days Tyler went to the mountains, Wendy, who always got up early, and I would see him off at the front door. His smile and response was just like any other day. Yet, such a thing happened. What? What do you mean, my husband? The news suddenly came the day after he left the house. Tyler had slipped and fallen off a cliff while hiking and was missing. Apparently, a hiker who happened to be passing by found some of his belongings and handed them over to the police. They contained his ID, phone, and wallet, and they used them to contact me. Please, find my husband. The police and the mountain rescue team conducted a desperate search, but unfortunately, heavy rain began that day, and they were unable to move as planned. Hikers who witnessed the scene said, if he fell from that height, he couldn't have escaped unharmed, and it's unfortunate, but he is likely already dead. No, please, be safe. I desperately contacted Tyler's workplace too. He worked at the headquarters of an outdoor equipment manufacturer, where he had many friends from his hobbies. So I thought maybe they could also help with the search. What? He quit? No way! When I heard the news, I couldn't believe my ears. The employee who answered the phone seemed confused and said, Tyler resigned a week ago. Furthermore, I found he changed his residential address. I naturally hadn't been informed about his resignation or the change in residency, and I no longer understood anything. When the police suggested that your husband might have been brooding over something without your knowledge, my mind went blank. From that point on, my memory is hazy, and before I knew it, several days had passed and the search for my husband, Tyler, had been called off. The police suggested that I file a missing person declaration, but ultimately I chose not to do it. Filing it would mean admitting that Tyler was gone from this world. I don't want to think that my husband is no longer here. I will wait for a miracle, no matter how slim the chances are. Although I said that, turning away from reality does not bring Tyler back. With a daughter, Wendy, to care for, I threw myself into taking care of her, which helped distract me from my thoughts. Wendy is growing up so fast. Come back and watch her grow up with me. I continued to call out to him in my heart as I looked at his photos, and I felt myself breaking down more and more each day. But still, I managed to keep going, though I realized I wasn't as strong as I thought, and after 2 years, I could no longer bear this feeling alone. Meals tasted bland, and tears would flow unexpectedly. Sleepless nights continued. At that time, my parents, seeing my distress, suggested I return home. Especially my father, who had just retired that year, thought strongly that this can't go on. I'm also retiring. Your mother and I are thinking of moving back to the countryside to live a more relaxed life. We will help, so why don't you live with us? My parents had both moved from the countryside to the city and were living in a reasonably priced apartment. With my father's retirement, they planned to sell the condo and move back to his family home. Apparently, after my grandparents, his parents, had passed away, there was no one left to take care of the remaining land and house, which had been left vacant. Can I live with Grandpa and Grandma in the new house? Seeing Wendy, who was excited about the idea next to me during the discussion about living together, made me realize the pain of losing a family member wasn't just mine. This child too had endured the sadness and loneliness of suddenly losing her father. Wendy is trying to move forward. What am I doing staying depressed as her mother? I decided to change my mindset and make a fresh start, deciding to move to a new place before Wendy started elementary school. But even after moving to the countryside with my parents, I still kept my marriage to Tyler officially registered. Once Wendy's school matters settled down, I planned to file a missing person declaration and properly prepare a memorial altar. Even though he is not physically present, I decided to believe that he lives on in the hearts of Wendy and me. And then came the day of the school entrance ceremony. Wendy immediately made friends with a child sitting next to her and was all smiles from the first day. I was worried because she didn't have any friends from kindergarten. I'm glad, she seems okay. After the homeroom sessions in each class, most parents and children were still around taking pictures and exchanging contact information instead of heading home. I thought of taking a picture with Wendy, and as I looked towards the main gate, that's when it happened. What? It was truly like a bolt from the blue. I couldn't take my eyes off a family taking pictures just a few meters away. In front of the school entrance sign, holding a woman and child, smiling happily, was Tyler, who was supposed to have died 2 years ago. Mommy? Oh, yes. It looks crowded over there, so let's take pictures of those flowers instead. I quickly moved Wendy away from the main gate. It seemed like they hadn't noticed us, but I couldn't bring myself to speak to the person I had so longed to see, even though he was right there. Just someone who looks like him. No, that can't be right. If it's Tyler, whom I've been with since college, I couldn't possibly mistake him, even from a distance or from behind. Looking closely, I recognized the woman and child with him as having been in the classroom earlier. They were the parents of a boy who sits next to Wendy. Why would such a person be walking with my husband? I soon found out the answer. With many opportunities for parents to visit the school at the beginning of the new school year, such as social gatherings and meetings, it was easy to approach the woman. You must be Wendy's mother. My son sits next to Wendy. My name is Molly. Nice to meet you. The woman taking pictures with Tyler on the day of the entrance ceremony was named Molly. She worked at a branch of an outdoor equipment manufacturer located in the region. It seems that the company is a rival manufacturer to my husband's former workplace. Nice to meet you too. I struggled to behave naturally without arousing suspicion. What is her relationship with him? I suppressed my desire to know more and carefully probed over time. We quickly became friends since we are the same age. Molly said she lost her husband in an accident 2 years ago and has been raising her son alone since then. Wait, but you had a husband at the entrance ceremony, right? Oh, he's my new husband. What's his name? I clenched my fist where she couldn't see and pushed for the heart of the matter. Tyler. He was also a classmate of mine. I felt a nauseating sensation rise from the back of my throat and goosebumps spread all over my body. No doubt about it, that person is indeed him. I managed to stop myself from collapsing by sheer willpower and maintained my composure as best I could. According to Molly, she first met my husband 3 years ago when her child was 3 years old. At the time, Molly's husband was still alive, and they were camping as a family. They were struggling with setting up a tent when Tyler, who was there camping alone, helped them. That was the beginning. He played a lot with my son and became friends with my former husband right away. However, they hadn't met since then, but a little after Molly's husband died 2 years ago, they met again. Tyler, who was wandering around this area in wet and dirty clothes, was taken in by Molly. It seems he had an accident and lost his memory. He seemed to have been mountain climbing from his attire. But somehow, he remembered us. Really? That happens? So, you started dating? She helped him with his daily life, and as they spent more time together, they gradually became attracted to each other. I was also vulnerable after losing my husband, and he was so kind to listen to me. My son grew attached to him too. They officially started dating a year ago. They decided to get married at the same time as her child's school enrollment. Their rapid closeness coincided exactly with the time my husband went missing after a fall 2 years ago. Didn't you think to investigate him? I mean, no offense, but isn't it worrying to be with someone whose background you know almost nothing about? Of course, I brought it up with him, but whenever I try to talk about his past, he seems very frightened. Maybe he experienced something really traumatic. For those reasons, Molly had not touched on her husband's past. When we first met, he mentioned he used to have a wife, but they had separated. Maybe she has something to do with it. Her story suggests that my husband, following a fall 2 years ago, disappeared, lost his memory, and started a new family elsewhere. When I realized this, it felt like something snapped inside me. That's just not acceptable. Driven by anger and unable to sit still any longer, I grabbed Molly's arm and started walking. What? What's going on all of a sudden? Ignoring her confusion, I hurriedly headed to the municipal office. There, I obtained a copy of my marriage certificate and confronted Molly with it. Sorry for being so abrupt, but please, I need to know if you are with me or against me. Her hands trembled as she held the paper. Probably, Molly had not known the truth until she was handed this document. How can this be, then? That means I. Her face turned pale, and tears appeared in her eyes. Being suddenly informed of such a thing and realizing she might have been unwittingly complicit in an affair. It seems like a perfectly reasonable reaction. But after a while, Molly wiped her tears, looked me in the eyes, and said, I want to know the truth too. I'll help with anything. From then on, we considered how to get the truth out of my husband. Tyler, with his claimed state of memory loss, was reluctant to discuss his past. It was unclear at this point whether that was true or a lie. There's a barbecue event at the company over the holiday. Everyone brings their family, and he'll probably be happy to come too. She told me about such an event. Family, huh? I don't know if it'll work, but shall we try our luck? I came up with a way to catch my husband in a lie, and I waited for the decisive day, believing it would work. Then came the day of the barbecue event. As expected, Tyler showed up at the event with Molly and her son. There's a friend I want you to meet, Molly said, leading Tyler to the table where I was. And then, the moment of truth. What? As soon as we faced each other, my husband's eyes widened, and he froze. He remembers everything. I realized in an instant. Do you understand what's happening now? I asked him quietly, but Tyler looked puzzled and responded. Nice to meet you. You are alive. Although I was angry at Tyler's feigned ignorance, I decided to wait for his next words. I'm sorry, do we know each other? Actually, due to certain circumstances, my memory of the past is a bit fuzzy. He began talking about the accident 2 years ago. Indeed, he claimed that the shock of the accident had caused him to lose most of his memories from before it. the only memory I retained was of her. I could figure out where I lived from my belongings, but I didn't know why I was there. I am your wife, and we have a daughter. Her name is Wendy. She's a classmate of Molly's child. Hearing this, he looked surprised. But it's difficult for me to understand this all of a sudden. I don't remember anything but Molly now. I've started a new life with my wife and son. It doesn't matter what's convenient for you. Legally, I am still your wife. Should I show you the proof? When I showed him a copy of the certificate that I had given to Molly, Tyler turned his face away. Even so, I don't want to destroy my current happiness. I'm really sorry, but please divorce me. I can't take responsibility for you and your daughter anymore. While he said this looking down, seemingly feeling guilty, it was unclear at this stage whether he was truly amnesic or just evading responsibility. Are we done here? I think it's better not to discuss this in front of the children. He even glanced at Molly's son nearby and started saying such things. Not yet. I can't get angry yet. It's almost time. As I took a deep breath to calm my anger, help arrived at just the right moment. Oh. Daddy. Huh? My daughter, who had stepped away to visit the stalls with my father, had returned. Wendy ran to her father, whom she had not seen for 2 years. However, Tyler didn't even glance at his daughter and was fixated on my father. Executive. I didn't miss that single word. I wanted to cheer, but I couldn't help smiling. Tyler noticed my expression and quickly covered his mouth, but it was too late for excuses. It's been a while, Tyler. I'm glad. Do you remember me? My father, Ken, used to work as an executive at the headquarters of the outdoor equipment manufacturer where my husband had worked. Although he had retired, he continued to maintain contacts with clients and competitors in the industry. We were invited to this event by the president of a rival company that had connections with our family. I had planned to use my father's name to trap him, but it was a pleasant surprise that he came in person. Why do you know my father? You just said you don't remember anything but Molly. Tyler began to show clear signs of agitation at my pointing out. 2 years ago, you asked me not to tell your daughter to protect your honor, so I didn't leak the news of your resignation, but it was a mistake. No, yes, that's right. I just remembered. You held an important position at the workplace, so you must have made a strong impression. So, you mean to say that your father-in-law, more than your wife and daughter, made the most lasting impression? I understand completely. While my father's lips were smiling, his eyes were not. I felt a bit of fear myself. The crime of faking an accident and hurting my daughter and granddaughter is grave. My father said in a stern voice, then added, I'll watch the kids, you two sort this out, before leaving with the 2 children. That left Molly and me alone. I heard you decided to get married. But you couldn't have done that while still married to me. Even if you truly lost your memory, you should have realized my existence. Did you say you'd file the marriage license because you were busy with school preparations? Or was it to hide that you were already married? I already know everything. Stop this ridiculous act. I said firmly, causing my husband to tremble. Why didn't you divorce me as soon as I disappeared? Hearing this, all the emotions I had bottled up surged forward. I couldn't think of the words to express how I felt at that moment, but many things I wanted to say to Tyler came to mind. Why would you lie about something that involves so much effort? Did you really think you could deceive me forever? Stop taking me for a fool. I knew this would happen, that's why I faked everything. What's wrong with that? Tyler had resigned from his job before the accident and had already moved. However, by explaining to the office that I'm having trouble with my wife, who becomes hysterical and violent whenever we talk. Here are some fabricated medical certificates and diaries. It was possible for him to secretly move his residency and hide this information. You all were distancing yourselves from my hobbies that you initially enjoyed. I felt increasingly neglected by my family. What is that supposed to mean, for such a reason? I met Molly's family when my interest and my daughter's interest in my husband's hobbies began to wane. Her family seemed to embody the ideal family image he had. I always wanted a son and wished we could go camping more frequently. My wife didn't fulfill that. Tyler, do you realize what you're saying? I had to meet you after I heard your husband passed away. I desperately wanted an ideal wife and son. Both Molly and I were speechless at Tyler's selfish reasoning. Neither my daughter nor I had grown to hate his hobbies. The decrease in our camping trips was merely because my daughter's interests had temporarily shifted from outdoor to indoor activities. Then you should have told me that 2 years ago and divorced me properly, then you could have gone to her openly. You wouldn't have agreed to it anyway. I was afraid of what the executive might say. His insistence that I was to blame completely cooled my feelings. Just to be clear, what do you think of me and Wendy? What? Do you not understand how lonely and painful it has been for Wendy and me? What was the point of us suffering for 2 years for your sake? No one asked you to think of me. You did that on your own. Exasperated, he dismissed me, and I could feel the blood rushing to my head. Fine, if that's what you want, let's get divorced. You will pay a lump sum for the damages and child support until our daughter is of age. No matter how angry I was, it didn't seem to affect him. I have no lingering feelings for you or our daughter anymore. If it's money you want, I'll pay. It's good, now I can live freely with my new family. He even seemed pleased as he said this. What's good about this? Don't joke around. What? Molly was taken aback by his reaction, and Tyler let out a foolish noise. It's over between us, too. I'm going to sue you for marriage fraud. Wait, why? Couldn't we have been a real couple? He seemed genuinely confused, looking frantically at an angry Molly. Did he actually think she would happily throw herself into his arms? I heard that Molly's family had even held an engagement ceremony and a small wedding for them. She had covered all those expenses and even supported Tyler financially when he lost his memory and job. Since you lied and swindled money, that's clearly fraud. She muttered under her breath, and Tyler's face began to turn pale. No, wait. I gave up everything to be with you. I love you that much. And life with a child alone is hard, isn't it? Finding a job again so soon. Just stop talking. Don't talk about that child. I'm not so fallen that I'd rely on a man who takes joy in his own wife's misfortune and betrays his own family. Molly shouted at Tyler with a sigh, looking pitiful. Hey, you won't abandon me, right? You were lonely without me, weren't you? Right, Wendy. Wendy too. Stop. Don't you dare speak her name. You have no right. She scolded him, and he shuddered, his eyes filling with sadness. Even though I once loved that face, at that moment, it was nothing but irksome. Let's leave the rest to the legal authorities. Enjoy your hobbies alone from now on. You're good at that. At the lively barbecue event, it seemed no one had noticed our conversation. Probably, to others, Molly and I walking together smiling, arm in arm, or my husband breaking down crying like a child, might have seemed like just another scene of drunken revelry. Later, it was agreed that Tyler would pay me a total of $300,000, including alimony and child support. Molly sued him for marriage fraud, and it was decided he would spend 2 years behind bars. Ultimately, he allocated all his assets to pay me before his incarceration, and any shortfall was to be paid in installments after his release. I felt truly sorry for his distant parents, but they told me, you don't need to worry. It was our foolish son who owes the apology. Now, Molly and I have become good friends, and our children enjoy school life together.